Hello and welcome to Wargaming Weekly. So thank you very much everybody that's joined us already. The chat page is filling up quickly, so hello everybody. We're pretty much on time tonight, which makes a change, but of course, as you can probably tell from the title, we've got some big news to talk about this evening, because ultimately I want to talk to you about this bad boy and what comes with it. So yes, there's some really cool stuff, loads and loads of bits and pieces to go through. I'm going to answer all your questions, so I have all the content you could possibly need in front of me, and I'm ready to go through it with you guys. So there is no holes barred. I'm allowed to talk about whatever. So anything you want to know about 8th edition, I will try and bring it for you live tonight. So get your questions written down, get ready to fire them away. Of course, I've not had this material very long, so I'm still kind of getting to grips with it myself, so I might not have all the answers, but I will try my best. But anyway, before we get too excited, I do want to thank my sponsor Wargames, as always, and there is no better time to check out Wargames at the moment. They are doing an awesome offer on the new edition, so by far one of the best offers around. So jump over to wargamesuk.co.uk, I believe that's right, and the link as always is in the description below, and get some ridiculous savings on all your new kit when it comes out for pre-release Saturday. So yeah, keep your eye on the website and keep your finger on the pulse, because some great savings, and I know Martin will absolutely appreciate you doing your business through Wargames. They are a community-driven store. They have come from being hobbyists like all of us, and they cannot wait to get stuck into this new edition like all you guys. So check them out and absolutely get your kit from Wargames. So let's just have a little look. Hello everybody. The room is very much filling up nice and quick. Right, Scrag, Robert, Tsar, Alan, really cool. So thank you for joining us tonight. And what I want to talk about tonight, so we'll do the normal kind of news, which will be really quick. In fact, that's probably it. And we're going to talk a little bit about Warhammer Fest and my experiences from Warhammer Fest. I'll talk to you a little bit how I got on, because obviously I was playing in the event, and a few friends that I met there again, and we'll have a chat about that, which should be a lot of fun. Hopefully it'll be interesting to you, and then we'll kind of dive into the main event, which I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to talking about. So tonight I'm going to focus, because there's so much stuff, I'm going to focus on the Xenos 2 book, because that's kind of, I think, what I've been looking at most. That is the Tyranids, Orcs, Tau, Genestealer Cult, all that goodness. So I'm going to focus predominantly on that and the rulebook, talk a little bit about the rulebook, how the game's going to work, how it's changed dramatically, what I like, what maybe I don't like. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then at the end I'll take any questions, and if they are wider questions not to do with 8th edition, that's cool, and if they are to do with other indexes, then I can find you that answer hopefully as well. So without further ado, let's talk about Warhammer Fest, because it was a pretty epic tournament and an epic event. So for a start, I want to say, I don't know if there's anyone in the chat, but I've got to say thank you so much for everybody that took the time to stop me and to say hello. It was absolutely touching. Really nice people. Great to meet so many absolutely cool people, and just chat and talk about whatever. So thank you very much everybody that stopped me. It was great to meet you, I look forward to seeing you all again in the future. But yeah, thank you very much. That's probably the thing that made my tournament more than anything. It was just nice, like, catching up with so many cool people, and finding out what they enjoy about the channel, what they like, all that good stuff. So thank you very much. Hey, Mr. Dark Artisans in the chat. We've got the legend that is Robert Dunn. Hello, good sir. So yeah, as I said, the chat room is filling up nice and quickly, and as I said, all the questions at the end, chuck them in, hold fast, and I will answer them all, or as many as I possibly can at the end. As I said, this is a no holds bar. I've not signed any contracts. I am technically allowed by Games Workshop to talk about the rulebook, but I will talk about anything else you want to know as well. So by all means, chuck all your questions my way, and I will answer them as best as I can. But anyway, going back to Warhammer Fest. So the event itself, really incredible event. There was an opportunity to play all the main systems from Games Workshop. So they had events for 40k, for 30k, for Age of Sigmar, for Blood Bowl, for the Hobbit. Even though I don't think I saw anybody playing in the Hobbit event, that there was kind of almost like a row of tables that was pretty much completely empty. As you probably expect, to be fair. It's probably more of a kind of casual game, probably not something you play in a tournament, but who knows. If you were playing the Hobbit, sorry, I didn't see you. But yeah, and then of course they had the Forge World exclusives and new releases. So Magnus was available, absolutely incredible model, and if you're excited to see him on the other channel, on Twisted Dice, little plug there, hopefully you guys are already subbed to it, but on Twisted Dice we have Magnus, who is probably about 50% done, I'm saying, touch wood, hopefully, and you'll see Magnus on the channel very, very soon, involved in some very, very cool content. So Magnus was there, the new Thunderhawk was there, very, very cool model, the new Custodes, Leviathan, Dreadnought, so loads of very, very cool, not necessarily exclusives, but pre-orders were available there as well. They had some little fun stuff, so they had all of their computer games, all of their sort of software was all playing, so you could have a go of all the different games, which was a nice touch. They had a bits box challenge, which I think they've done previously. It's a long time since I've gone to one of these kind of global events, but you basically had loads and loads of sprues, and you could just make yourself a diorama, and their theme this year was Armageddon, which was cool. So they had like loads of Space Marines, loads of Orcs, really, really cool. One of the really interesting thing was on the Space Marine sprues there was a ton of grav cannons, which I don't think there'd be so many grav cannons on there come a few weeks ago, but that maybe is a sign of the times, and I digress, but I just thought that was very, 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 very funny. Loads of grav cannons going wasted. So there was that. Then there was an opportunity to play the new system, so they were running kind of demo games with the new Dark Millennium, something like that kit. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. So there was demonstrations on how to play that. There was lots of seminars on all the new stuff. They announced that 30k is going to stay with a slightly tweaked 7th edition rule set, which very much pleased me and a lot of the die-hard 30k players that really don't want to bin those really, really expensive books, and they're quite happy. The game works quite well in 30k. It's not really that broken, so at the moment they're going to tick along with that, and they're going to make a new rule book specifically for 30k, which I thought was a nice touch, and it means that, you know, potentially people that don't necessarily get on with 40k, the new edition, you've got an opportunity to play slightly more 7th edition in 30k, which I think is a nice touch. I think eventually, obviously, it will go back, will go forward, and come more in line with the new edition, but it absolutely makes good sense for them to keep things ticking over at the moment with a format that really, really works. So I thought that was very, very cool. Of course, there was loads of very, very cool displays, both big, huge dioramas style, like just incredible how they've managed to bring all this stuff in, some stuff that hadn't been seen previously. So you had the big spaceport thing, skyport for the Carriaging Overlords for Age of Sigmar, which was incredible. It's like a massive, great big kind of almost floating rock with all the hot air balloons all kind of circling it. There was a big dynamic battle between Nurgle and the new Primus Marines. That was very, very cool. They had loads of the heavy metal painters, and loads of the other White Dwarf painters were also there, sharing tricks and hints. They were quite happy for you to kind of show models, and they give you pointers on how to improve, which I thought was a lovely touch. All of them pretty happy to talk about 8th edition, and yeah, it was a really chilled out, great atmosphere and event. And as I said, for myself, I thoroughly enjoyed just meeting people, catching up with people. Got to catch up with a lot of the other YouTubers, which, even though we do catch up with each other quite often, it's never as much as we'd like. So it's great to see, you know, the guys from Tabletop Tactics, the guys from the Geeks Wargaming, so many other cool people there. The SM Battle Report guys were there as well. John from Vidicast was there. Loads and loads of cool people that I love spending time with, and it was a great opportunity to kind of catch up with, so that was very good. And I would love to spend more time catching up with more people. It's just one of those things, there's never enough time at these events, particularly when you're playing. But anyway, so that's the event, and of course I could not mention that on the Sunday was Golden Demon, obviously the biggest Golden Demon in the world, the one that everybody kind of flocks to kind of be the pinnacle of the painting circuit, and some phenomenal entries there. Probably my only frustration with that was it was really difficult to actually see the entries because there was just an absolute swarm of people around them. So I got a chance to have a look at a lot of them, and a lot of the ones that actually won I did have a good look at, but you know, incredible stuff there, and well done to all the winners and all the participants to Golden Demon, because I think to stretch yourself and to enter something into Golden Demon is an incredible achievement in itself, and something that I'd love to do. But you know, you have to be really brave, and it isn't necessarily just all about being the best, because actually just that opening yourself to criticism and to kind of pitting yourself against the best painters is a great barometer of where you need to go in the hobby if you're really dedicated to your painting. So I think, you know, well done to everybody that entered that, even if you didn't get anywhere, even if you didn't get a final. If you got a final, fantastic, and if you managed to be one of the winners, well then absolutely hats off to you guys. You're amazing painters, and keep up the good work. So that is that. More people in the chat, filling up nicely. We've got Wargames, of course, the legend that is Martin McNeil, and the absolute place to go for all your 8th edition or Newhammer goods, books, what you name it, armies. Get yourself a new army. There's loads of stuff changing there. So I digress massively. Huge great big plug there, but as I said, I can't thank Martin enough for his support to this channel, and you guys, if you want to help me out, get all your kit from Wargames. Absolutely cannot stress, it's the place to go for all your wargaming goodies. Anyway, so how did I get on in Warhammer Fest? I'm going quite quickly here, guys, because I know you'll probably only want to know about one thing, which is this. But before we go into that, let's talk a bit more about Warhammer Fest. So I entered Age of Sigmar. Crazy stuff. Really surprised. So a lot of people caught me all the way through the event and were like, "So how you getting on?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing all right." And they're like, "So what are you playing? You playing Tau? You playing Tyranids?" No, I'm playing Skaven. And you know, still there was like a what? And I think I had to pinch myself a little bit every now and again. Every time I walked past the 40k tables, I had a bit of a grimace. I'm not going to lie, but just walking past those tables, I was a bit like, "That's where I should be. I should be playing on those tables." But you know, that's the nice thing about trying something different, giving yourself a fresh challenge. So it's 5 games. First game I played against a Beast Claw, something like that. If Harry's still in the chat, it's basically your stuff, the big old woolly mammoth guys with the tusks and stuff. ogres riding them, something like that. I don't know. I can never remember the names. I'm still getting used to Age of Sigmar. But basically, the big ass ogres riding on these big thunder tusk things. So there was 2 of those, and then they had some sort of savage orcs, and then some night goblins. It had a name, kind of the build, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but it gave you certain buffs. But anyway, so he had 2 of the big guys, he had a load of archers, and he had 2 units of night goblins, beast claw riders. Thank you very much, Martin. Yeah, the Cunning Rock. Thank you, Rob. Absolutely. So that's what I was playing, the Cunning Rock art. Cunning Rock. And so yeah, it had loads of buffs, and one thing that kind of caught me out straight away was these guys, they reduce your damage output by half, a lot of them, and that was crazy, because what I spoke about last week, the list that I took was all about mortal wound output, and it's very much an alpha strike, incredibly cheesy, of course, drops in, just hammers like hell, and then hopefully everything's dead, or otherwise you're in trouble. So as expected, I dropped in, I killed one of the big guys, and I took the other one down to 1 single wound. He then proceeded in taking out half of my army just on the next turn, which was incredibly frightening, but I still managed to hang on in there. I had the warp lightning cannon that was doing work, and I hung in there for a minor victory on my first game. So very, very happy with that. Lovely guy, really, really nice to play against, and in fact he's quite local, so I'm expecting to play him again in the not too near distant future, something like that. It's been a long day, guys, apologies. So that's my first game. My second game, I pretty much came up against something very, very similar. So this one was just all, so it was 3 of the big beast claw riders, and it was just loads and loads of goblins, like a big sea of goblins, and a few of the catapults, and that was the list. So there was nothing more than that. They had like a little shaman goblin, but that was it. Pretty basic, but it was even tougher because this time I had to deal with 3 of these big monsters. So I tried to do the same again, drop in, try and do as much damage as I could. This time I rolled a stinker, and I only took out 1, and the other one was probably half still in a good place. So then the counter was even more painful. And long story short, even though we kind of hung in there, we did work, we killed another one, but 3 was just too much for my reduced scryer list. Couldn't quite deal with it. My full-bodied 2k, I think I'd have been alright, but in the 1750 points level, which is what we were playing at Warhammer Fest, it just come a little bit too short. Hi Ali, you alright? Good to see you in the chat. So it came a little bit too short, which was a shame, because I would have loved to have gotten those first 2 wins out of the way nice and quickly, because my target for the tournament was to get 2 wins. So just managed, just fell apart on that. Just couldn't quite do the damage I needed to. So I went on to the third game. Now the third game I played was against the Stormcast Eternals. Lovely list, pretty varied, combination of lots of different units, and he had the Stardrake, which is an incredible model, and can do a lot of work, to be fair. But it was a very elite army. I was playing a guy called James. He's actually one of the London GT guys, and also one of the playtesters for 8th edition. Really, really top bloke. I've known him for a little while on and off, but it was the first time I had an opportunity to actually spend quite a bit of time with him. Thoroughly nice guy, but that game was very painful for him. It was over within just over 2 turns, really. Pretty much killed everything bar the Stardrake that came down quite late, because everything was coming down from the Celestial realm, kind of deep striking in. But yeah, it wasn't fun for him. It was not fun. So I took that win. So I got my second win, which I was really, really happy with, because that was all I'd aimed for, 2 wins. So 3 games down, 2 wins, 1 loss. Happy days. the fourth game, and we played 4 games on Saturday, so you can imagine pretty tiring stuff. The fourth game, I had a lovely invite again to go on to Warhammer TV, so I don't know whether anyone got an opportunity to watch it. Probably not. I didn't really put anything on social media, and probably a bit of luck too, because as I'm going to tell you my story of woe. So again, I was playing Stormcast Eternals, and a very varied, well-rounded list. Nothing too scary, nothing on there particularly dirty or broken, and a game that really I should have won. And it was a story of mistakes and errors and not knowing the missions and really coming unstuck, where we're still showing that I need to learn Age of Sigmar more. So the mission we were playing was Gifts from Heaven. So if you've not played Age of Sigmar, which probably a lot of people in the chat maybe haven't, the way that Gifts from Heaven works basically is at the beginning of your turn 2, your objective comes down randomly somewhere along your deployment, and then your opponent, the same thing happens again, and they are your scoring objectives for the game. You score them at the end of each turn, so you tally up the points. It's a progressive mission type, which so far so good, no issues. The first mistake came where, one, I went for blood. I decided to go for that alpha strike. I am very bad with this. It's my general problem, as most of you guys know. I am a bit of a glutton for the bloodlust, and the bloodlust was real. Particularly playing this list that I play, it's so vicious and brutal. You just want to drop it down and just want to annihilate everything, because it's such a powerful list. But every now and again you need to bide your time. You need to wait, and that's what I didn't do. I let him have his turn, and then I was like, right, I'm going to smash everything. I'm going to kill it all, and then I'm going to get a double turn, and then it'd be game over. But actually, the reality was, the best thing that I could have done was actually hang fast and wait for turn 2, because in turn 2, those objectives would have come down. I could have then just guarded the objectives, killed everything on the other objective, and that would have been game over to me anyway. But instead, I went for that, try and kill them all off. So that was my first mistake, but saying that, it was going okay. I was killing more than he was killing. It was a fairly sort of decent game going either way. Some bad rolls from me. He was rolling really hot, which was keeping him in the game. He won all the priority rolls, so again, he was hanging in there when he needed to. But, and this is the big but, this is where the major error came. So in a lot of the missions in Age of Sigmar, you score by having the most amount of models within 6 inches of the objective, and that's how I was playing this mission. Now in Gifts from Heaven, you just have to control the objective and not have an enemy model within range to contest it, to score it, and I did not know that. So in the last turn, when actually all I needed to do was move an engineer to the other side of the building and guarantee the win, pretty much guarantee the win, I stayed there thinking that it was a foregone conclusion, because he had 5 guys running in that I could not kill, and that would take the objective. That cost me the game, and afterwards the guys from Warhammer TV run over and they were like, what happened there? And I was like, well, I couldn't do anything about it. And they explained it, and I was like, oh, killer. So, and that's the mistakes you make learning a new system. So I absolutely beat myself up, and Martin would 100% know that evening, man, I was really killing myself, because I was like, how on earth did I make such a stupid mistake? But it happens, you know. It's just one of those things. You have to kind of suck it up. I don't like beating myself, so, and that's what ultimately I did. So yeah, Martin's saying full, and absolutely. I don't like beating myself, so and ultimately that's what I did. So a little bit gutted, but you know, you live and learn. So we rocked into the Sunday, and my last game was against Skaven, another great guy. In fact, it was the brother of the guy that beat me the evening before, and he had quite a mixed Skaven army. He had the Vermin Lord Deceiver, which is a great unit and something that I'd like to use in the future, 100%. He's got a load of tricks. He can kind of appear all over the place and move other units around. Really, really cool unit. Lots of tricks. But against my list, again, he didn't have enough bubble wrap. He made a couple of mistakes with deployment, and again, it was over turn 1. I just dropped in, killed everything, more or less. By turn 3, he just had 10 clan rats. I hadn't really lost anything. So, pretty brutal stuff. And that took my 3rd win. So I won 3 and lost 2. There was a little bit of a cock up with the see you later green stuff. Little bit of a cock up with the points. Their actual final tally was I came 4th. The realistically is I probably came about 7th or 8th. But you know, ultimately 3 wins, 2 losses. I'll take that. But great event. And well done to all the guys that did well in all the other events. Got to say congratulations to Martin. Finished 4th, I believe, Martin, for 40k in one of the most vile, you know, types of armies. Like, just the lists were ridiculous. So congratulations for Martin for getting 4th, and massive congratulations goes to Max for winning it. Max, a guy I've played quite a few times, and wow, he's really come on leaps and bounds. You know, full credit where credit's due. He's somebody that I played probably about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe not quite as long as that, but at least 3 years ago I would say, and kind of just getting involved in tournaments, really struggling, but absolutely desperate to learn. And every time I've kind of come into a new tournament with him, his lists have got tighter, his tactics are better. In fact, I played him in the final of No Retreat, and we kind of had a long chat afterwards. And you can just see he's learning things all the time, and the fact that he took that GT title in one of the most vilest atmospheres of 40k you're likely to ever experience, hats off to him, well done. That's top work. I'm just looking at the comments. Anyway, right, so that's enough about Age of Sigmar, because I know that nobody here has come to talk or to listen about Age of Sigmar. You've all come to talk and to listen about this, haven't you? So, where to start really is I suppose is the first thing. What a ride we've all been through over the last month and a half, and we're almost there, guys. So, it's been a drip feed of rumours, of leaks, of tasters, of rules, of all sorts. We've been through it all, and it's been a bit of a bittersweet experience, because you know, ultimately we just want those rules in our hands. We want to get hold of that. We want to know what our units do. We want all that good stuff, and it's been a bit frustrating at times. But the great thing is that Games Workshop have absolutely supported us through that. They've kind of come back to our comments. They've, you know, bantered with us as we've kind of criticised or commented on whatever they put out, and it's been a real interesting couple of months. Something I've never seen since I've been in the hobby. Such a interactive, real kind of slow grow launch into this game. But we're almost here, guys. So Saturday, the all the books, the box set will all go on pre-release. As I said, buy yours from Wargames, but it's all going live, so that's when you'll be able to jump on. You'll be able to order it and start getting excited about getting your rule books, your indexes, your new Cool Marines in your hands in 2 weeks' time. So not long to wait. But what I wanted to talk about is what's going on in this book. So what is it? What's the changes? What to look forward to? What is it that, you know, what do you need to know, basically? So the first thing you need to know is it's fantastic. It's absolutely awesome. It's everything that makes Age of Sigmar great, but everything that lets Age of Sigmar down is sorted in this book. It's everything, all the fun, the fair of 40k, but all the bogged down bloatedness has gone. a simplified, streamlined game, but yet with a ton of flavour and complexity in there as well. So in this book, and I suppose let's start off with, let's have a little look in here. So in this book, what we've got is we have a hell of a lot of fluff, as always, and love it or hate it, you've got a lot of fluff. So when we actually get to the rules, let's get to rules for you. So okay, so that, guys, is basically the rules. Now that's not the missions, you've got a separate bit for missions, but that is basically the rules. So as you can see, a lot of that's fluff, a lot of it's missions, a lot of it's artwork, all sorts. But in actual fact, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-ish pages is pretty much your rules. So straight away, I read this through probably about 3 or 4 times in the space of a few hours, and I'm pretty confident that I could play a game right now and play it pretty quickly and easily. So that's great in itself, you know, the fact that all that kind of that bogged down complexity, those pages and pages of special rules have all gone. Those rules, those special rules, those extra flavour are all in your not data slates, but in your indexes, and that's where you can kind of build the complexity. But the actual rules themselves are pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So they've taken very much the structure that that we use in Age of Sigmar, i.e. the turns are set, and this is not a million miles away from where we currently sit. You have your movement, then you have your movements with your advancing, so you run as well, get that all done at the same time, which is great. It's more time efficient. You've got your shooting, you've got your charging, then you've got the actual combat phase, and then you have the morale phase, very much like the battle shock phase in Age of Sigmar, and psychic phase in there somewhere, psychic phase after movement, something like that. Let's have a look. Yeah, psychic phase after movement. So yeah, so movement phase, psychic phase, shooting phase, charge phase, fight phase, and then morale. So that's it really. Really simple, straightforward, not a million miles away from where we currently sit, but all of those phases are simplified. So as I said, so the movement phase itself, every profile has a movement characteristics. Those movement characteristics on the bigger models can vary if they're damaged, but in principle everything's got its movement there. Movement's a lot quicker than it was previously, so that's going to speed the game up as well, because things are going to get in action quicker. You're going to be running at the same time, so you're going to be rolling that dice, running, absolutely. You've got things that fly. There's no sort of separate funky fly thing really. It's just if things fly, you have a minimum and maximum range. There is something in here around, we can do a little bit of blocking of flyers and stuff with fly, you know, because if they can't kind of land within their minimum, they are destroyed. I don't think that's something that you're going to see very often, but there's some tricky stuff around flying, because from what I've seen from first impressions, there's a lot of benefits with having the fly special rule, because it means that you can come out of combat and still shoot, and most things don't allow you to do that, but fly allows you to do it. So your flying units are going to be very useful in the new game, 100%. So all your jetpack, all your jetpacks, anything with the fly rule is going to be very good, particularly if it's resilient enough to come in, maybe take a punch, then jump back and then shoot stuff down. So you know, you can read between the lines there, but and if you want to know, as I said at the end, I'll by all means answer your question and tell you what has and hasn't got those rules. But fly is going to be very powerful without a doubt. So that's your kind of movement, really simple. Your psychic phase, we go a lot more back to the psychic phase of 5th and early 6th edition. I think it might have even been, I think all of 6th edition, to be fair. It's much closer to just a couple of dice, simplified, nice and streamlined. Very psychic armies, maybe slightly frustrated that a little bit of that kind of flavour of a vast array of psychic powers has pretty much gone. You've got a small amount of psychic disciplines at the moment. Now that could obviously change from each of the factions. You can either choose those psychic powers, which is nice, or you can select, or you can roll for them. So very much same again as Age of Sigmar, has similar kind of flavour with picking stuff, and it just depends whether you're playing something narrative or whether you actually desperately need a certain power. But that's very cool. Every Psyker has Smite special rule, which is basically a pretty easy Witchfire psychic power that does mortal wounds. And mortal wounds, if you're unaware, is basically, it's not D, because that would be really frightening you all. It's not D, but basically it just does wounds without any save at all. The other thing that's quite cool is Perils of the Warp. Now Perils of the Warp again has been simplified, but is potentially more brutal. So what Perils of the Warp is going to do is, on a double 1 or a double 6, you're going to take a Perils, and then you're going to take D3 mortal wounds. But the quite cool thing is when their head explodes, if you die, then units close by are also going to take mortal wounds as well, which adds quite a lot of flavour to it. I quite like that. Your Denying the Witch is going to be similar. You're going to have basically be able to kind of dice off. So all your psychic powers are going to be on a number. So your psychic power might take 5 to cast. You'll roll 2 dice. See if you can beat that. And then if your opponent's within range of their Psyker, they'll try and deny it by beating your score. Now a lot of this has already come up, so apologies if I'm telling you what you already know, but I'm going to run through this just so you've got a flavour of the new edition. So shooting is going to be still very, very powerful, without a doubt. It's going to be still a key part of the game. A lot of people were worried that shooting is kind of had its day. It hasn't. It's still very powerful, and in some ways it's more powerful because there's some other little shenanigans you can do there with pistol shooting in combat. Much easier to focus on different targets. Your snipers are going to be very, very effective at taking out characters. So there's loads of cool stuff that shooting comes into, but it's definitely not going to be the be all and end all. Assault armies are going to be able to cope much better, and we'll go on to that a little bit in a minute. But yeah, so shooting, pretty simple. Anything is going to be able to hurt anything, as you already know. That's been well broadcast, but I like that as well. And it will be slightly easier for stuff that's in that mid-range to still be able to hurt the tough stuff. So good example, Wraith Knight at toughness 8. Your strength 6 stuff is going to be wounding a Wraith Knight on a 5 rather than a 6. So things are going to die a lot quicker, and I think that's good. And as I said, we'll talk a bit more about weapons and stuff in a minute, but that's shooting in a nutshell. Still loads of cool people jumping in the chat. The chat room is really, really full. We've got Twisted Dice in there. I'm not sure whether that is Sean or Darren, but whoever it is, awesome. Hello fellas. And as I said, once you finish watching this video, make sure you jump over and you press that sub button on Twisted Dice. There's going to be so much cool content, and if anything else, surely you want to be ready to see Magnus when he drops, which is coming very, very soon. So, and we'll have loads of 8th edition content hitting really soon. So anyway, so that's a flavour of shooting, and I want to keep skimming over this, guys, because I'll save a lot of time for the questions, and when we can have a little bit of a chat and a discussion on what's good, what's bad, what you want to know, what you don't want to know. And I'm very conscious that a lot of this is quite old news because there's been leaks, and also a lot of people have spoken detail through the little teasers, so I don't want to go into too much detail. So the charge phase, again, very similar to kind of how it is at the moment. There's a little bit more tactical approach with it, so you're going to have to be a bit clever with how you charge in to make sure you're not too close to the other enemies. There's quite a lot of, it's a lot closer to Age of Sigmar, where that combat phase, you need to play it right. You can't just go, there's 2 dice, I'm just going to pile in, that's it. You really got to plan your approach, where your piling move's going to take you, how you're going to plan it so you get the most amount of models in combat. It's only going to be the top 2, the front 2 rows that will be able to strike, so particularly if you're infantry, you're going to have to plan that very, very cleverly to make sure you get your full volume of attacks. And again, you're going to be able to separate your attacks, so you can, if you're a monstrous creature where you've got loads of attacks, you can allocate some attacks to one unit, or some attacks to one, some to the other. Your weapons will all be able to be used, so if you've got multiple weapons on a profile, unless it says you can't, you'll be able to attack with multiple weapons as well. So I think, Assault's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be the longest phase, I would suggest, and it's where I think a lot of the armies that have seen the biggest boost are going to really come into their own. And that is the fight phase. We have the morale phase, which anyone that's familiar with Age of Sigmar will know it's exactly the same as the battle shock. So more or less, rather than units running away, they'll take damage, basically additional damage, depending on how badly they've lost combat. You'll roll off against your leadership, and then you'll add the amount of casualties you'll have, and how much you go past your leadership will be how many models die. And that can be really vicious, but there's lots of ways to stop that from happening. Lots of the units have abilities to reduce that or to stop it, and lots of things are immune to it, so not the end of the world. So that's your and that in a nutshell is the sequence. The deployment is very different, so your deployment now will be a case of I go, you go, which is cool. And then again it will be the first army to deploy will get the option to kind of go first or to go second. There's a lot more different deployments, so they looks like I've only been playing 30k for a little while, but it looks like they may have brought the deployments from 30k in. Let me see if I can show you. So you've got 6 deployment types, and one of the really kind of nice things about it is the player that wins the role of to go first, but the player that places the last objective. I think this is on every mission, gets the option to decide on what deployment style they play. So that's really quite a cool little extra flavour, because some of the deployment modes will really favour some armies and some will favour others, but you're going to get a real kind of different type of flavour with all these different deployments, which I think is a really nice added additional. So that's that. As I said, so you'll have the first person to finish deployment will get the opportunity to choose whether it goes first or second. They have taken out the dreaded double turn from Age of Sigmar, which, love it or hate it, is very, very different and will mean that Age of Sigmar will be a very different game from 40k, which is good. Any of you that aren't familiar with that, your turns are not just I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go. At the end of each battle round, you'll roll a dice and roll off for initiative. That changes the dynamic of the game hugely. 40k hasn't adopted that, and I think that's probably a lot down to feedback. A lot of people don't like the double turn, so I think that's probably good feedback. So that's that. So that's the game as such. Let's talk a little bit about the picking your army, and again I think we've seen a bit of this, but I will talk through it in a little bit of detail. So one of the really nice things about the new hammer is it's allowing you to take a flavoured army that suits you, but it isn't unbound. Unbound's kind of gone from, because you have and we're talking about match play. I must say this is match play we're focusing in on here. I've not even looked at the narrative, the open play. It doesn't really float my boat. So obviously when you get your book, you'll have an opportunity to look in that in detail if that's the sort of thing that interests you. But from a match play point of view, you have lots of different detachments. So I'll kind of show you here, guys. So you have patrol detachment, battalion detachment, brigade detachment, vanguard, spearhead, outrider, and you have the supreme command detachment, which I haven't quite got my head around, if I'm being brutally honest. And in those detachments, basically they have got a flavour for everybody. So let's take Martin's army for example. So Martin likes a fast moving army. He likes to play his White Scars, he likes to play his Dark Eldar. So he might go, well actually I want to take the outrider detachment because I'm not bothered with troops, I just want to take loads of fast moving stuff. So he can take an HQ and he can take 3 fast attack units, and that makes up his legal outrider detachment. He'll still get 1 command point, which I'll go over how that works in a minute, and that's a totally legal list which he can then go and enter in a tournament, he can go and play with, he can enjoy the fluffiness of playing a fast army, which is really cool. If you take somebody else, a friend of mine wants to play all Mauler Fiends, so he wants to play Mauler Fiends, that's what he wants to do, that's his flavour. So he can take the spearhead detachment and he can take an HQ and he can take 3 heavies, or he can take up to 6 heavies, and he's suddenly got a legal list, and again he gets a command point. So it's built so you can build an army around your flavour, and the strengths and weaknesses of the general units. When you start to look in depth at all the indexes, you can see why it doesn't necessarily always suit to go down that route, but it's there for you, and you can absolutely enjoy your hobby and your army by fielding it how you want, and not feel dirty that you've gone and got yourself like an unbound list, or it's not going to work, because you can still use it and it's not going to be necessarily overpowered, it's not going to be broken, it's just going to be different. So I think that's a really cool factor. So we'll go on to command points. So command points are the big new thing, and they're something that they've put in place to attempt to potentially balance stuff in certain ways. So let's give you an example. So if you went for the battalion detachment, which is basically 3 to 6 troops and 2 HQs, that will give you 3 command points. Whereas if you decided that actually you want to go for the brigade detachment, that's 3 HQs, 6 troops, 3 elites, 5 fast attack, 3 heavies. So you've basically got a bit of everything. That will give you 9 command points. Now command points you can basically use to buy stratagems. Stratagems, again, not necessarily a new thing, it goes way back, but basically stratagems come in the form of 3 different things. So basically a single reroll of a dice, an opportunity to fight before your opponent, and an opportunity to not take a morale test. So as we just spoken about how important that potentially could be. So you spend those points that you've got from building certain detachments, and that will then allow you to kind of bypass certain things or use certain abilities. So it's a nice little added little thing that you've got. If I'm honest, most of the detachments you're probably only getting 1 or 2. They're probably not going to change the game massively, and actually if you've got a really strong detachment that is all heavies, you're probably not that worried that you've only got 1 and somebody that's made up of just troops is going to get 3. So whether that will actually do the balancing act that it's there to do, we'll have to wait and see. But it's a nice little mechanic that they've kind of chucked in there. So that's your detachments. The missions haven't really changed. So they've changed the names of the Eternal War missions. So if we scroll back and have a little look at these, so you now have Retrieval Mission, No Mercy, the Scouring, which is still the big gun, big guns never tire, Secure and Control, the Relic. But those are more or less the same missions as they were before, just with new names. So for instance, No Mercy is just kill points. That's it. There's some slight different wording things in here, so they've cleared up the issues that we all have with Relic. Relic is really simple now, and I'll read it out for you. An infantry model can carry the Relic by moving in contact with it. That model then automatically picks it up. From that point, the Relic remains with the model. Move the Relic with the model to show this until it is dropped, which only happens if the model is slain or flees. A model with the Relic cannot embark on a transport, leave the battlefield, or furthermore, or move further than 9 in a single phase for any reason. How easy is that? How many times have we all had arguments and debates about the Relic and how it works in regards to an objective? For me, that makes it really simple how you move it. Very easy. Very easy. And it just says victory conditions at the end of the battle. If a model from the player's army is carrying the Relic, and it says is carrying the Relic, then the player wins a major victory. So easy, nice and simple. They've taken the feedback and they've made that mission a lot more user friendly, which is not a bad thing. So that's those missions. Majority of the missions, and I need to read through them in a bit more detail, but objectives are held by having the most amount of models within 3 inches of that objective. So that's the way you score them. So your objective secure bit, that's all gone. It's just your number of models, which automatically favours infantry style armies. So that's how that works. The other missions, the tactical objective ones, not looked at them in too much detail. Looks like there's some fine tuning on there, but basically you've still got contact lost, you've got tactical escalation, spores of war, cloak and shadows, deadlock, and that's it. So yeah, so that is pretty much your rulebook, and really simple, very easy. As I said, I've pretty much learnt it in the space of hours. Yeah, there's always going to be a few bits and pieces that you're gonna learn as you're going along, and you're going to find that there's wording issues in there. 100%, we'll find them. We know we will, and it won't be perfect. But actually, that's the first rule book that I've read for quite some time. I picked it up, I've digested that in a relatively small period of time, and I'm ready to go. Now it helps that I've been playing Age of Sigmar, I won't lie, but actually that's pretty straightforward stuff. So that's that, and we've got a nice full room. So thank you everybody for joining us. Everyone's having a good old chat in the chat, which is cool. Probably won't be able to keep up to date with loads and loads of stuff. We will, as I said, if you just jump into the chat now, going to go through a little bit of details around Xenos 2. We'll probably talk more in detail about the others maybe next week, but I want to just focus on one of the indexes and talk about how that, well, basically let's talk about Tyranids, to be honest. But I want to talk a little bit about that, and then after that I'll answer questions a lot more generally, either about the general rules, about certain units. If you want to know about a unit, I'll tell you about a unit and how it works. But let's talk a little bit about Xenos 2. So, Xenos 2, what do you need to know? So, let's start with Tyranids, because that's potentially the thing that I love the most, as you all know. So, Tyranids, really cool. We've got an absolutely massive lift, and in some quite unusual ways. So, We are very, very good in combat, so all the monsters are going to be better, and the main reason why those monsters are going to be better is because the way the rules work. So that initiative's gone, so it's all about charging. So along the days where your monster would just get killed because it would always strike last, that's not going to happen anymore. So these big monsters are going to be charging and killing stuff before it can kill them. So a big example, and they spoke about it in a lot of detail actually in Games Workshop, but a big example would be the Trigon Prime. So the Trigon Prime, he is a beast basically. So he's got 12 wounds, he's got 6 attacks, strength 7, toughness 6. When he's damaged, he starts to reduce in power, so his movement is dependent on how healthy he is. So he starts off with a movement of 9 inches, so nice and quick, which is cool. And then it goes down to 7, and it goes to 5. And again, his weapon skill and ballistic skill also get reduced depending on how healthy he is. But let's talk about his damage output. Now bear in mind, a Trigon Prime can pretty much deep strikes. So basically at any time, at the beginning of the movement phase, you say, right, the Trigon's coming up, it tunnels up. One thing it can also do is bring something with it. As I said, we've already heard this, so this is not news to you guys, but when then it does hit you, now obviously you need to roll a 9 because it has to deploy 9 inches away from an enemy, but once it hits you, it's pretty damn incredible. So the Trigon, as I said, has 6 attacks. Now its massive scathing talons are user's strength, so that's strength 7. So most things you're going to be wounding on 3s or 4s, most of the time 3s, I believe. And the really tough stuff you're going to be wounding on 5s. Once you get that wound through and you've got a lot of attacks there, it's -3 to their save. -3. That means even the best stuff is probably only going to have a 6 up save or a 5 or 6 if they've got lucky. And then each damage that gets through, so each one they don't save, is doing D6 damage. D6 damage. So you can guess how much damage that's going to do. That is insane. Incredible. And then on top of that, it has its tail as well, and its tail is strength 6 and it does D3 damage, and that's an attack you can use as well, and you can maybe allocate that to a different unit. So incredible. But what I want to talk about, guys, and you've heard it here first, so I want to talk to you about exocrines. So exocrines, where is it? Let me get it. Here we go. Now, I had a feeling these bad boys were going to be good, so I purchased myself another one from eBay the other day. This is the exocrine. Now the exocrine has got 12 wounds. He has got a 3 up save. He's toughness 8. Toughness 8. That's the same as a Wraith Knight. Strength 7. Movement 6. So he's not particularly quick, but this is when it gets crazy stuff, guys. Crazy. His bioplasma cannon, which used to have a range of 24, now has a range of 36. It used to shoot 6 shots. It now shoots 6 shots, but if it stands still, it can shoot its weapon twice. Strength 7, -3, 2 damage. Plus, if it stands still, it goes +1 ballistic skill, which takes it up to ballistic skill hitting on 3s. So you've got 12 shots hitting on 3s, strength 7, -3 to your save, doing 2 damage each. You only have to do the maths. 2 or 3 of these guys are going to take down more or less anything. So there's my hot tip, particularly for you Tyranid players. Exocrines, absolutely, and they only come in when you add on the weapon. They come in at like 216 points for an absolute vicious killing machine. So that's the exocrine. Let's have a look at something else Tyranid based. Find the page. Let's talk about Let's talk about a couple of the characters. So these guys, so you have the Death Leaper and you have the Red Terror, two units that you never really used to see on the table. Both these units actually pretty damn useful, and I was talking to somebody on the weekend about Death Leaper, and I knew that his rule would work like this. So basically the Death Leaper is -2 to hit from shooting, which is cool, not too dissimilar to how he is currently, where you can only snapshot against him, but it kind of makes sense in the way that the mechanics work. But the Death Leaper, some really cool little rules. So it's after me. During deployment, you can set up the Death Leaper to hunt a victim instead of placing it on the battlefield. If so, at the start of the first battle round, but before the first turn begins, pick a character from the opposing army. At the end of any movement phase, Death Leaper can pounce upon the victim. Set it up anywhere on the battlefield within 6 of the enemy character that you choose, but more than 1 inch away from any enemy model. So that's cool because he can jump in. He's not bad. He's got 4 attacks. He's pretty good. He's got like these rending claws, so -4 to AP on a roll of 6. He's pretty good. The Red Terror. Now the Red Terror was an absolute useless unit in the last edition. Absolutely so so useless it was unreal. Now the Red Terror, the Swallow's Hole rule can actually work, particularly if you've got a slightly weakened character, because the Swallow Hole rule, if 4 or more of the Red Terror's talon attacks hit, instead of causing damage normally, the Red Terror can attempt to swallow the victim whole. Roll a d6. If the result is equal or higher than the highest wound characteristic of a unit, 1 model from the unit is slain. So even though it's not awesome, you still need to depend on all those hits to hit. But the difference was that in the last edition, the Red Terror would generally be probably hitting on 4s or 3s at best. Now he hits on 2s, so you only need to get 4 of those, which you're likely to, and then you've got a good chance of swallowing something whole. So that's quite cool. Really fun. Well, there's so much cool stuff. So Haruspex, another one of those units that was absolutely useless, is now one of the most expensive units in the Tyranid Index, but he gets serious volume of attacks, crazy attacks. So for each attack he does, you roll d3 hits per roll, which is just insane. His AP is like -3 d3 damage each, so he's a great unit. So solid. So Tyranids overall, I could go absolutely wax lyrical about them, but there's not too many bad units in here, which is so cool. All the units look pretty damn cool, all look playable, loads of variety. So if you like watching my battle reports, expect tons more stuff to come. Let's just have a quick look at the chat. Can't wait to see what the Dimmacharon does. Absolutely, Dimmacharon is going to be wicked. Absolutely. And yes, Kablams, lots of 8th edition chat going on. We've been talking about the rulebook, and now we're talking a little bit about the index, and I'm concentrating on the Xenos 2 faction today. So that's that. Let's talk a little bit about Tau briefly, and I think after we finish talking about Tau we'll jump into some questions, because I've been talking non-stop for the last hour and I could do a break and answer your questions. So Tau. Now Tau are definitely slightly weakened, so the advantage that they've got is a lot of their units have the fly rule, so they are going to get an opportunity, if they can survive combat, to jump back and shoot you some more. Their guns are decent, don't get me wrong, but actually my Tyranids can pretty much outshoot the Tau, which is crazy. Tau, they don't even shoot that well. They're going to have a tough time. Now the good thing is they've still got some solid units, so the all their big units, the Riptides, the Storm Surges, are all still really solid, so they're going nowhere. So obviously the death of the Riptide wing is gone. That's been and dead. You haven't got to worry about that anymore. But Riptides are not dead. Riptides are still very alive and kicking. And the Storm Surge is particularly brutal. The Storm Surge is going to be causing people damage all over the place. So yeah, more than happy to talk about the units more in detail, but basically, yeah, I mean, Tau are going to struggle a little bit at first, I think, until they find the best way to play, because they don't have the advantage of being able to fight that well in combat, where a lot of the other armies have kind of got a buff in combat and shooting. Tau have pretty much just maintained their kind of good at shooting but not particularly good at anything else, and you know, with Markalites not working quite the same way, they're going to struggle a little bit more. So that is Tau. So anyway, guys, that's probably enough of me just chatting your ear holes off. Fire away with any questions. Let me know what you want to know about 8th edition. So we've got 22 people in the chat. What about Colts? Are they looking good? Yes, Colt are looking good. They have pretty much maintained pretty much a similar sort of rules that they had prior. So their deployments the same. Their units are very good still. Lots of attacks. Let's have a quick look at some units. Who do you want to know about? So let's have a look. So let's take a look at Acolyte. So Acolytes, pretty much exactly the same, unchanged. Demolition charges are awesome. So trucks and rock grinders with them demolition charges, they are brutal as hell. Strength 8, -3, D3, range 6. They're just gonna, if you can imagine, so these guys are like literally just, if you think that vehicles are now going to assault things as well, these are going to come flying in, unload their troops, chuck out grenades, blow up all sorts. They're going to be brutal. So yeah, I mean, they're decent. They are decent. So the Rending Claw is exactly the same as Gene Stealers. So you roll a 6, and it's -4 rend. So things basically just ain't getting a save against them. They're hitting on 3s, which is good, because before, unless you buffed them, they were hitting on 4s. Now they're always going to be hitting on 3s, your Acolytes. So that's solid. Strength 4, toughness 3, 5 up save. No massive change, but really decent. So they'll be good. They'll be good. Let's see what I've missed, because there's a lot of people chatting in here. Let's scroll up a little bit. Do you think the Necrons RP will be as overpowered in the game as they seem on paper? No, not really. So what you've got to remember with the new edition is everything's packing much more of a punch. So the difference is you are going to need to annihilate those units, but that's no different from what you used to do in 6th edition. it's just kind of gone back to that way of playing. So it means that on the whole, it just depends how you look at it. I tend to think that when they change them over to the last edition, that they're stronger, because you can kind of, that same guy can keep passing those saves over and over again. With the new way and the way that it's kind of gone back to, you can knock out that whole unit, then they just ain't getting back up again. So yes, there's ways of making that more reliable, them getting back up. They're fairly resilient as they are. They're very, very cheap. I think they're going to be very powerful. They're going to be solid. But do I think they're going to be broken, or do I think they're going to be OP? Not really, because I think their damage output's not going to be quite as much as some of the other guys. They will go back to that fact of them being a slugging army. They're just going to hang in there. They're going to hold on. They're going to survive, which is a Necron sort of style. So yes, do I think they'll be good? Absolutely. But I think they're going to play in that way, and I still think you're just going to have to play them in a different way. You're just going to have to go out to annihilate a unit before you move on, which is just a different way of playing them. So interesting. We'll see. Any armies that don't look good? No, Nick. So I would say potentially Tau are one of the worst I've looked at so far. Tzeentch demons are not going to be as good as they are currently, because they're, at the moment, straight off the bat, their variety of psychic powers is not as good. They don't have the ability to make themselves quite as resilient as they are currently, so they've taken a bit of a beating. Some of their units just aren't quite as good as they are now, so I think they've gone down the pecking order a little bit. Nurgle are pretty strong, but Tzeentch definitely potentially not as strong as they used to be. But most armies have got some really solid units in. Definitely looking like move away from Age of Shooting, or at least smaller chances of early game tabling. Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing is, if you set yourself out just to shoot, you're going to find that you're going to get in combat pretty quick, and you're not going to have an answer. So I don't think you can build a I don't think you can build an army like that anymore. What else have we got on here? Archon has a shadow field as standard. Yeah, he needs it though, to be fair. The Stomper is now 977 points. Yeah, but he also has 5,000 wounds. So, and they're trying to get a little bit away from that kind of bringing a ridiculously big model to a standard game. They're trying to come away from that to make it a little bit more so it works, you know, because actually, as much as I've done it loads of times, most people will know because they've played me, but actually it doesn't fit with the story. If you've got a Titan and then a couple of small units, it doesn't work like that. So I think it's not a bad thing that we get these huge great monsters pointed correctly, so they're only brought in the bigger games, and still give you the opportunity to have a fighting chance, because orcs very much have come back into flavour with this new edition. What else we got here? Do you think that quality is going to trump strength? Quantity is going to trump strength when it comes to shooting with wounds not spilling over? Yeah, time will tell, but potentially I would say so. People just chatting. Vehicles seem to have gotten more expensive and everything else has got cheaper. Yeah, it's kind of it's varied. There are some that have not been massively increased, but vehicles themselves are a lot better because they can have fighting combat. They're a lot more resilient. They're not going to explode, so they've got understandably more expensive, but they're much more of a useful unit in the game. Speed is going to be so important, and if something gives you that speed, then it's ultimately a really strong tool. So they're more expensive for a really good reason. So it doesn't surprise me at all. A good question. 100 plus for a raider. Yep. I think they got enough. What else have we got here? What's the movement for a raider? Right, let's have a look, shall we? Let me have a look. That will be in Xenos 1, I believe. So let's have a look. Anyone knows it, shout it out. I'll come back to you in a second. Let me have a look. I've heard Rhinos 70 points, 78 points. Who's going to upgrade them? But who isn't going to upgrade them? Yeah. 14 for Raider. What army do you think is the first 8th edition battle report? What will my first 8th edition battle report? Tyranids, absolutely, and we're hoping that might be this weekend, so we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. We've got to put a few things in place, but fingers crossed the first battle report will be on Twisted Dice and it will be this weekend. So again, more reasons to jump over and watch Twisted Dice sub, and you'll get some fresh 8th edition battle reports dropping very, very soon. Yes, yeah, no, thanks Johnny. Yeah, Klabams has answered it. I can't do more than one thing at the same time. Hello Winters, did you shower this evening or do you still smell really bad? I still smell really bad. It's really hot in here actually. That worries me that Winters is around. I don't trust him. He's got to be somewhere. Hello anyway, mate. Thanks for joining us. You jump in just at the end, of course, unless you've been lurking in the shadows and we don't know about it. But thank you for joining us anyway. Appreciate it. We are talking all things 8th edition, as you can probably guess. What have we got? Any other questions in here? That looks more or less about it. Lurking outside your window. He's back there. Oh, you do crack me up. Winters, you should be building Death Guard. You absolutely should be, Winters. 100%. Get those Death Guard going. You can see Winters' hat. Yeah. How funny would that be? Like literally, if I lifted the curtain and he's just there. Yeah. Oh guys, right, I tell you what, I'm exhausted. Hopefully this has been really interesting for you. As I said, this is the first one. What was this? Whilst you're in the indexes, how many Ogrins can a Stormlord hold? Dear God, I've not even got to that book yet, to be honest with you, Alan. If you message me on Facebook, I'll give you the answer, because I am exhausted and I'm going to call it a day now, my friend, because I'm struggling to find anything and even read your writing. Hey, Jack. Absolutely. It was a great fun Age of Sigmar tournament. Yes. Winter's narration on that video was absolutely awesome. Thank you very much, sir. I'm pleased you enjoyed it. The main reason is he was cheap, and you know, you've got to do what you got to do. But yes, guys, before we start wittering on, and I've not heard any Jaffa Cake questions yet, so I think while we've not got any Jaffa Cake questions, probably a really good time to finish the chat. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will be back next week and we will talk and focus on another one of the indexes. We'll talk about that and we'll rip apart that codex, that index, look in detail, find the fun stuff, and the movers and the shakers. But as always, please do like, comment and subscribe. Thank you very much for hanging around. Everyone's chatting. Yeah, I love you too, Winters. And I'll see you later, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.